Ekam Mansyante Tvam Maharathaha Eshan Chatvam Bahumataha Bhutva Yasyasi Laghavam.
Oh, I just scrolled down. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward. Lord Krishna continued to give his verdict to Arjuna. Do not think that the great generals like Duryodhana, Karna, and other contemporaries will think you have left the battlefield out of compassion for your brothers and grandfather. They will think you have left out of fear for your life, and thus their high estimation of your personality will go to hell. Oh, we might be missing 36.
Avatyavadanscha bahun vadishyanti tavahitaha Nindantastav samathyam tato dukkataram nukim.
Keep going back. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Lord Krishna was astonished in the beginning at Arjuna's uncalled for plea for compassion, and he described his compassion as benefiting the non-Aryans. Now, in so many words, he has proved his statements against Arjuna's so-called compassion. I'm trying to get it to just stay there.
Hato va prapsyasi swargam jitva va bhoksyase mahi tatmadustishta kaunteya yuddhaya krita nischayah.
Oh, this is driving me crazy.
Are you okay?
Why does it keep just going wherever it feels like going?
Hmm.
All right, I guess this is my yoga today.
Good point.
O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up and fight with determination. Even though there was no certainty of victory for Arjuna's side, he still had to fight. For even being killed there, he could be elevated into the heavenly planet.
Sukha dukkhe same krutva labha labhau jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papamavapsyasi.
So see, sometimes complaining helps because it listens. Do so fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing, you shall never incur sin. Am I reading the right? Am I on the same one?
That was the right one.
Okay. Do so fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. Lord Krishna now directly says that Arjuna should fight for the sake of fighting because he desires the battle. There is no consideration of happiness or distress, profit or gain, victory or defeat in the activities of Krishna consciousness. That everything should be performed for the sake of Krishna is transcendental consciousness. So there is no reaction to material activities. He who acts for his own sense gratification, either in goodness or in passion, is subject to the reaction good or bad. But he who has completely surrendered himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness is no longer obliged to anyone, nor is he a debtor to anyone, as one in the ordinary course of activities, as is in the ordinary course of activities. It is said, Davarsi Udapta Naram Pitram Na Kinkaro Naya Rini Cha Rajan Svartamana Ya Saranam Saranam Gato Mukanadanam Pari Tia Kartam. Anyone who has completely surrendered unto Krishna Mukunda, giving up all other duties, is no longer a debtor, nor is he obliged to anyone, not the demigods, nor the sages, nor the people in general, nor kingsmen, nor humanity, nor forefathers. That is the indirect hint given by Krishna to Arjuna in this verse. And the matter will be more clearly explained in the following verses.
एषा ते विहिता साङ्ख्ये बुद्धिर्योगे त्विमां शृणु बुद्ध्या युक्तो यया पार्थ कर्मबन्धं प्रहास्यसि.
Thus far, I have declared to you the analytical knowledge of Sankhya philosophy. Now listen to the knowledge of yoga whereby one works without fruitive result. O son of Pritha, when you act by such intelligence, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. According to the Nirukti, or the Vedic dictionary, Sankhya means that which describes phenomena in detail, and Sankhya refers to that philosophy which describes the real nature of the soul. And yoga involves controlling the senses. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting because he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom by conquering his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the basic principles were for sense gratification. Happiness derived from conquering them and happiness derived from seeing kinsmen alive are both on the basis of personal sense gratification, for there is a sacrifice of wisdom and duty. Krishna therefore wanted to explain to Arjuna that by killing the body of his grandfather, he would not be killing the soul proper, and he explained that all individual persons, including the Lord himself, are eternal individuals. They were individuals in the past, they were individuals in the present, and they will continue to remain individuals in the future, because all of us are individual souls eternally, and we simply change our body dress in different manners. But actually, we keep an individuality even after liberation from the bondage of material dress. An analytical study of the soul and the body has been very graphically explained by Lord Krishna. And this descriptive knowledge of the soul and the body from different angles, our vision has been described here as Sankhya in terms of the Nirukti dictionary. This Sankhya has nothing to do with the Sankhya philosophy of the atheist Kapila. Long before the impostor Kapila Sakya, the Sankhya philosophy was expounded in the Srimad Bhagavatam by the true Lord Kapila, the incarnation of Lord Krishna, who explained it to his mother, Devahuti. It is clearly explained by him that the Purusha, or the Supreme Lord, is active and that he creates by looking over the Prakriti. This is accepted in the Vedas and in the Gita. The description in the Vedas indicates that the Lord glanced over the Prakriti, or nature, and impregnated it with atomic individual souls. All these individuals are working in the material world for sense gratification, and under the spell of material energy, they are thinking beyond enjoyers. This mentality is dragged to the last point of liberation when the living entity wants to become one with the Lord. This is the last snare of Maya, or sense gratification, or sense gratifitory illusion, and it is only after many, many births of such sense gratifitory activities that a great soul surrenders unto Vasudeva, Lord Krishna, thereby fulfilling the search after the ultimate truth. Arjuna has already accepted Krishna as his spiritual master by surrendering himself unto him. Sisyasteham sadimam tavam prapanam. Consequently, Krishna will now tell him about the working process of Buddhi Yoga, or Karma Yoga, or in other words, the practice of devotional service only for the sense gratification of the Lord. This Buddhi Yoga is clearly explained in chapter 10, verse 10, as being direct communion with the Lord, who is sitting at the Paramatma in everyone's heart. But such communion does not take place without devotional service. One who is therefore situated in devotional or transcendental loving service to the Lord, or in other words, in Krishna consciousness, attains to this stage of Buddhi Yoga by special grace of the Lord. The Lord says, therefore, that only to those who are always engaged in devotional service out of transcendental love does he award the pure knowledge of devotion and love. In that way, the devotee can reach him easily in the ever blissful kingdom of God. Thus, the Buddhi Yogi mentioned in this verse is the devotional service of the Lord, and the word Sankhya mentioned herein has nothing to do with the atheistic Sankhya Yoga enunciated by the impostor Kapila. One should not, therefore, misunderstand that Sankhya Yoga mentioned herein has any connection with the atheist Sankhya. Nor did that philosophy have any influence during that time, nor would Lord Krishna care to mention such godless philosophical speculations. Real Sankhya philosophy is described by the Lord Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even that Sankhya has nothing to do with the current topics. Here, Sankhya means analytical description of the body and soul. Lord Krishna made an analytical description of the soul just to bring Arjuna to the point of Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Therefore, Lord Krishna's Sankhya and Lord Kapila's Sankhya, as described in the Bhagavatam, are one and the same. They are all Bhakti Yoga. He said, therefore, that only the less intelligent class of men make a distinction between Sankhya Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Of course, my brain just blinked out. And I'm just going to say atheist Sankhya Yoga has nothing to do with Bhakti Yoga. Yet the unintelligent claim that the atheistic Sankhya Yoga is referred to in the Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore understand that Buddhi Yoga means to work in Krishna consciousness in the full bliss and knowledge of devotional service. One who works for the satisfaction of the Lord only, however difficult such work may be, is working under the principles of Buddhi Yoga and finds himself always in transcendental bliss. By such transcendental engagement, one achieves all transcendental qualities automatically by the grace of the Lord, and thus his liberation is complete in itself, without his making extraneous endeavors to acquire knowledge. There is much difference between work in Krishna consciousness and work for fruitive results, especially in the matter of sense gratification for achieving results in terms of family or material happiness. Buddhi yoga is therefore the transcendental quality of the work that we perform. That was a big one. Do you guys need me to pause there, or are we good to keep going?
I'm good if you keep going.
Okay.
If anyone else has questions, then
Yeah, if you guys have questions in between, just pause me. I don't like just interrupt me. 40.
नेहाभिक्रमनाशोऽस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्.
In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Activity in Krishna consciousness, or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification, is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed. Otherwise, the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss, even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from that point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. Anjamila performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the results he enjoyed in the end was 100%. By the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection of Srimad Bhagavatam. Taya katava sva dharnamam karanam bhujam hara vajana paka ta pata tatayadi yatra kava Vahadram Abud Amusyai Kim Ko Vartha Apa Vajakatam Svadharmata. If someone gives up self-gratificatory pursuits and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Bhagavad Gita 1:5-17. Or as the Christians say, oh, that's probably Bhagavatam 1:5-17. Or as Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffers the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body. But working Krishna consciousness carries the person again to Krishna consciousness, even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of great cultured Brahmana, or the rich
Aristocratic?
aristocratic family that will give one a further chance of elevation. Thank you, Sue. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness.
व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धिः एकेह कुरु नन्दन बहुशाखाः ह्यनन्ताश्च बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम्.
Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are of those who are irresolute. Irresolute is many branched. Sometimes they sneak these scary words in.
You're fading, Pam. Your voice is fading.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
A strong faith in Krishna consciousness that one should be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Mika intelligence. The Chaitanya Karitamatra states, Shraddha Sabadi Vishvasa Kahi Shuddha Niskaya Krishna Bhakti Kali Sarva Karma Krita Haya. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. Fruitive actions are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material consumption of life. This state is automatically achieved by progress Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Saram Iti Sa Mahatma Judurlabha, by which one comes to know perfectly that Vasudeva or Krishna is the root of all manifested causes. As water on the root of a tree is automatically distributed to the leaves and branches, in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely self, family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone will be satisfied. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual masters as follows. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado, Yasya pradana gath kutupi, dayanam stuvam tasya yasa sri sandayam, vadi guru sri karni vidyam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied, and not by satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day and offer my respectful obediences unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in the mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts.
यामिमां पुष्पितां वाचं प्रवदन्त्य विपश्चितः वेदवादरताः पार्थ नान्यदस्तीति वादिनः कामात्मानः स्वर्गपराः जन्म कर्म फलप्रदाम् क्रियाविशेषबहुला भोगैश्वर्यगतिं प्रति
Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratifications in opulent life, they say that there is nothing more than this. People in general are not very intelligent, and due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven, where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. In the Vedas, many sacrifices are recommended for elevation to the heavenly planets, especially the Joyatistoma sacrifices. In fact, it is stated that anyone desiring elevation to the heavenly planets must perform these sacrifices, and men with a poor fund of knowledge think that this is the whole purpose of Vedic wisdom. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. As fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the result of such attractions, similarly, unenlightened men are attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. In the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, it is said that those who perform the 4 monthly penances become eligible to drink the Somarasa beverage to become immortal and happy forever. Even on this earth, some are very eager to have Somarasa to become strong and fit to enjoy sense gratifications. Such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. They are generally sensual, and they do not want anything other than the heavenly pleasures of life. It is understood that there are gardens called Nanda Anana Kanana, in which there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women, and having a profuse supply of Somarosa wine. Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual. Therefore, there are those who are purely attached to material, temporary happiness, as lords of the material world. I'm going to pause here because it's 8 o'clock to give us some time to chat. I just want to see something.
So what is the difference between watching a baby who's, well, no, I was going to say watching a baby who's taking such joy in moving his, limbs and reaching and looking and seeing, light and fans move and that kind of thing, and a holy person. And then I thought, nah, because when the baby does that, he's really knee deep in taking joy in the material world and just feeling himself and discovering himself. And he may not be able to voice his material purpose, but it's definitely there. So never mind.
But it's probably not that much different because, like, Amanda teaches us all these illusions and some scars start to happen. So he probably, I feel like at birth or as a baby, we're at our closest. Well, at least for me, I was. And then outside influences start taking place. So maybe the baby is not much different.
Maybe, but when you're born, you are carrying with you karma and things you allegedly have to do from your prior lives, right? That's the message. And you have to exercise those or find a way to get around them. If you're especially clever or holy, I guess. And that's done through material means. Is that true or not?
Yeah, but maybe the baby was born, like all babies are born different. So maybe the baby's born lives ahead of us. as a spiritual master. And is
Yeah,
there
I mean, all spiritual masters start as babies, right?
Yeah, right.
like maybe that baby enjoying his feet is Krishna, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Well,
funny.
I don't.
What?
I can't remember. I'm blanking so hard. They do say like you're not like fully in the material world until a certain point. The children are like connected. Their chakra system isn't fully embodied until a certain age, so they're still like more connected to sort of the spiritual world than an adult is, unless an adult has been doing the work.
Well, I felt the closest I could feel to Krishna while I was reading today because I'm not very I'm not very hard on myself. So while I was reading, if I mess up a word, I don't like talk meanly, like whatever. I couldn't say the word. Sometimes I don't know the definition of the word. I'm not a genius. I don't know every word. I can't speak Sanskrit. I do the best I can. While I was reading today, I liked the part where Krishna was like, don't worry, like do things in the material world for Krishna, not for good or bad. And that kind of like, I was like, but then of course it was like, but you got to do it under a spiritual master. But I'm like, whatever, baby steps. I don't have a spiritual master. I'm still doing it for Krishna. It's not like nobody's judging me. I'm not judging myself. And that's how I've been doing all these mornings, like with Sue. Like we made it through, like I never like beat myself up for trying, I guess,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the whole culture of
Yeah. And
bhakti.
it's such a
There's like a
great,
lot of stuff like that in the Bhagavad Gita, where he's saying, just offer me a fruit, a flower, some water. It doesn't matter what it looks like, it's what the intention is behind it.
yeah. And then it's like when I was having the tech issue at the beginning and I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. Once I stopped attaching myself to it and I like let it, I'm like, whatever, I can either stop switching back and in my head, this is what was going on. Like I can either stop switching back and forth between the Instagram, but like I really enjoy going to the Instagram versus having to try to pronounce the words. I don't mind listening to someone else do it, but like for me, if I'm reading, I want to be able to play the Instagram. But I'm like, no, I'm just gonna go back and forth. And if I have to scroll up every time, then this is just how it has to be. And as soon as I did that, it worked.
almost like surrender.
Yeah, it's 100% surrender. But that's the hard part. Like for me, that's the scary part of religion. Like of the religion I wasn't even taught religion, but of the religion my brain thinks it knows, the surrendering. And that's the hard part in the yoga practice when I show up. It's like the idea of like, even in like your savasana, and you're like completely surrendered there on the mat. And like, you're in a safe place. You're hopefully feeling really good and you're laying there, but you're still like clenching something or, like the best surrenders are like, I mean, the best savasanas are when you are like way, like you completely are surrendered and you're like way out there. And for me, that's a lot of my practice is like to get myself to that point, but it's so hard for me to be completely like surrendered. So that's why I enjoy studying this bhakti yoga part of yoga, because it is a very freeing feeling to not be so attached to everything.
For me, what kept coming up in my head was thinking of, for a way for me to relate to it was thinking of letting go of the ego in a way. And I find that when I do that, those things come naturally. Like being more Krishna, was it called? Comes more naturally when you're able to do that. But it's hard. It's hard for me to do it. And then when I do it, I'm like, how did I get there? And it's hard for me to find the roadmap back to it.
Yeah. Practice, like everything else, right?
Yeah.
And then we forget. And then we get reminded. and we start over. But I think the good part is like maybe we don't have to start at the beginning. It's just we're starting where we left off. So it's not like we got to rebuild the whole map, put the whole puzzle. You just start where you did the last puzzle piece.
It is, it reminded me of two things. One is in Amanda's classes, when she says, count back from 100 during Shavasana, if that helps you to let go, and yet it gives you something to focus on and let go sometimes. And then if you lose it, you go back and you start at 100 or 99. So some days I'm lucky if I make it to 97. And so I know what you're talking about. The other thing is, there's a couple of books I've been trying. I'm not a scientist, and so I've been trying to read some of these physics books, and they're really, really, really hard to read, some of them. And the concepts are hard to wrap your head around because it's so counterintuitive. And I find that if I read some every day, I am in a better place than if I stop, even for a few days. I have to go back and reread, a bunch of what I read before. But even in those instances, there was a message that you just read, Pam, that said, if you're doing it for Krishna and you get 1% done, when you come back and do it again, you're starting at 2. You're not going back to 0.
Yeah.
And so if I'm reading these books and I'm really trying very hard to just immerse myself in it and understand it, when I go back and reread it, I'm not going back to ground zero. I'm starting again. So it's almost, it speaks to the importance of consistency and practice, and just letting go of trying to attain something like this, and just saying, just do it, and maybe it'll come and maybe it won't come, but some of it's going to come. So
it's back to my favorite sutra. Keep practicing for a long time in all earnestness. Sutra 114. But it's even like that when we were reading Hatha Yoga Pradipika, and we weren't on, maybe we only learned 1%. I think it was more. I feel like we learned more than 1%. But like, I think that's a perfect example. Like, we were trying so hard to like get to know everything, but we were consistent with it. We made it through it, and we did our best. And now I feel like as we move on, things will start making more sense from that book. And I think it's like nice we did sutras, Hatha Yoga, Bhagavad Gita, and then like if we were to do that cycle of all again, it would be a totally different experience.
yeah.
It would be 2% because we made it through the 1%. And we continued learning on the way. All right, we should do breath and meditate. Oh, it's just finding a tall, straight spine. Even practicing surrendering in your meditation. Maybe this is something we add in. Relaxing the face, taking a few breaths in through the nose, out through the nose. Beginning to deepen the breath into the low belly. And exhaling it all out. And then bring your right hand over to your face. A few rounds of alternate nostril breath. You'll fold your peace fingers into your palm and close your right nostril with your right thumb. Inhale through your left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Continuing on your own breath, a few more rounds. Adding locks and retention if it's in your practice. When you feel ready, you'll exhale out through the left nostril and settle into your meditation. I'll set the timer. You'll join us when you're ready. If you need to drop early, drop at any time. Bringing your hands to your heart. Namaste. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Enjoy.
Thank you.